Hi there and welcome back to my channel. This is Sean, the Honest Book Reviewer, with another book review. In this video we're discussing Traced, written by Catherine Jinks. It's a slow burn thriller. It's psychological in nature, very much so. The slow burn elements are more distant slow burn elements. There's no close action throughout the book, not much of it anyway. It's more distant in nature. It's more about thoughts and monitoring from a distance. Personally for me, I would have preferred more close action to more cat and mouse style escaping and running, or finding someone's there watching you, because this book involves people hiding from somebody for a very good reason. And you think with a book like that you'd have more aspects about that person, tracking them down and close escapes, some real nail-biting stuff going on. Apart from that though, the slow burn psychological aspect is well done, because we dive into the thoughts of the main character Jane very much, so I did enjoy that. This book is a great slow burn thriller, and I think a lot of readers will enjoy it. The book starts off in the onset of the COVID pandemic, and our main character Jane is a COVID tracer. Overall, the story is told in past and present storyline. Now, not my favourite way of telling a story, and it just feels like so many thrillers now have this split storyline going on. I don't know why that is. Sometimes it feels lazy. In this book, it does work to a degree. I think sometimes the changes between the storylines from the past and present, I think those changes sometimes felt jarring and didn't work so well. But I did enjoy the past storyline more than the present storyline. I felt the past storyline was more engaging and compelling. In the present, that cat and mouse tension that's supposed to build up feels very distant, and I wanted more close action. I wanted some scenes, some narrow escape scenes, something that felt more close and more edge of the seat, nail biting. I did like the slow burn build up of the story. That was done well. Could get inside of the main character's head, but I just needed something to change that a little bit. So overall, I enjoyed the whole concept and the construction of the story, and it was thrilling and engaging, but I just wanted a few narrow escape scenes just to mix it up a little bit. In the present storyline, our main character Jane is a COVID tracer, and this storyline is set in the onset stages of the COVID pandemic. So Jane is just going through her normal daily activities. She's calling somebody up to let them know they're a close contact. And during this phone call, she finds out this woman is fearful of her fiancé. If her fiancé finds out she could have COVID, it could be dire consequences. Her fiancé is angry a lot. It sounds like the fiancé is abusive, and Jane's worried for her. So they work out a way to get this woman away from her home and to isolate somewhere else. They think she's safe. But then they find out that this woman leaves that isolated area and goes back home. And Jane also finds out the name of the fiancé, and she's got chills straight away. It shocks her, because the name of the fiancé is the name of the person her daughter used to be engaged to. And this guy is abusive, he's controlling, he's not a nice guy at all, and that sends shockwaves through Jane's life. And something else happens that really chills her. She calls up the cell number of this lady to talk to her, to find out why she left isolation, to find out if she's safe. And the lady's fiancé answers the phone. And he recognises Jane's voice. And he knows who she is now, and he knows where she works. So even though Jane wasn't engaged to this guy, she's the mother of the girl who was. Jane is so fearful for her life, and this sends her whole world into a spiral. So desperate and terrified, Jane does everything she can to protect herself. She quits her job at the tracing centre. She calls her daughter to warn her daughter. And what's more, her daughter has a son. And the guy her daughter was with in the past, this dangerous guy, this guy they're all terrified of, doesn't know that he's got a child. He doesn't know this person exists. So now they're terrified not only for their own lives, but for this child's life as well. This is where the cat and mouse element comes into the story. From that moment in the story, and many times throughout the story, we're told that this guy is an expert in tech. That's all we're told, really. It's very general terms. That he works with computers, he's some sort of data analyst. And Jane thinks because of that, he's a tech genius, and that this guy can trace anybody he wants to at any time. I think that element, that whole thing about this guy being a genius in tech, it's made bigger than it really is in this story, because throughout the book, we're not really given any proof, any evidence that this guy is a genius in tech. But anyway, you run with that because it's part of the story, and it's part of what makes Jane, our main character, and her daughter as well, fearful from this guy. So using her network of friends and also colleagues, Jane manages to get out of her home and protect herself by moving somewhere else. And that's okay until her daughter calls her for help, desperate help. And that's where I'll leave the plot, because after that phone call, things change a lot in this story. But in general terms of this book, the cat and mouse game is at a distance, which I didn't enjoy that much. I needed something to shake it up a little bit, some close escapes, something else rather than having everything feeling like at a safe distance. But that slow burn tension in the story, that psychological tension through Jane's eyes, that's consistent. It builds up slowly in the story, and it builds up well, and the story holds on to that. So a lot of thrillers, sometimes that tension slips a bit, because sometimes there's filler in the story and you get pulled out of the story. But in this story, you don't. It's written very well. There's not much filler in the story at all. And so you're engaged in the book all the time, engaged with the characters. That tension remains in the story. And you do want to know what's going on. You get behind them. You want to know they're safe. You want them to be safe in this book. So I enjoyed that part of this story. The conclusion, I think it's a good conclusion. It could have been slightly better. And I think that's down to the choice of language at the end of the story. It feels a little bit safe. It feels like there's not much extreme danger in that conclusion. But I think it's good. What it actually feels like in this book, it feels like almost a 90s movie, 90s thriller movie. When I read this, I had a lot of sense about Sleeping with the Enemy, something like that. But Sleeping with the Enemy, I think, has more danger in the tension, more danger in those psychological moments. You feel like the characters are more at threat. That's because there's more closeness in the action, more closeness in the threats between the villain and the hero in the story. In this book, while the slow burn elements build up quite well, without those closeness, without those close threats, that close action throughout the story, it does miss something in the narrative. Jane, our main character, she's well written. I did engage with her more in the past storyline, the present storyline. I think because in the past storyline, her situation is more desperate, because that's when her daughter's engaged to this guy that Jane doesn't like, that Jane thinks is threatening and dangerous, and we feel her desperation, we feel her fear more in the past storyline. It just seems to come through more clearly for some reason in that part of the story. In the present storyline, that fear is still there, it's still very clear, and that tension does build up well, but it doesn't feel as threatening, it doesn't feel as dangerous as the past storyline. And I think that's down to all the cat and mouse stuff with Jane happening at a distance. It's not close, at least not until towards the end of the story. Tara, who's the daughter in this book, now, she is a good character. She's well created. Again, in the past storyline, I found her more compelling, more real. In the present storyline, she feels like she's not complete in a way. There's one thing about her that's not consistent in my eyes in the present storyline, and I can't say why that is because it'll give too many parts away of the story. But for me, she's not as compelling as Jane, the mother character in this book. And that's because Tara doesn't feel as fearful, doesn't feel as tense as I would have thought somebody in this situation would feel. So I think a good character, well written, but just something small missing from the character overall. Eric is a friend of Jane's that helps her out a lot, and he's in both storylines, past and present. He's there for two main reasons. He's there as a support, like a rock character for Jane, but also someone with a plan. He's the person who has connections, who can get things done, who knows how to do things. He used to work in law enforcement, so you get my drift about that. He's a good character. He feels very real. And this character feels so Australian. The way he's written, you couldn't write this character this way and have him as a character in America or UK or any other country. He feels so Australian, and I enjoy that so much in this story. You don't get many Australian books, many Australian thrillers, where the character feels so Australian. But I enjoyed Eric very much. I'm so glad he's in the story. I'd actually like to read another book with this character. I wouldn't mind seeing Eric as a main character in books himself. Traced is a good slow burn thriller. It takes people who are already on edge, the onset of the COVID pandemic. People are feeling on edge already. It takes those characters and puts them into another situation that's more dire, more threatening. And it asks the question, what would you do? What would you do in a situation like that? It is a good book. I recommend it. I think this will find a wide audience. Well, I hope it does. It deserves a bit of a wider audience. And I think a lot of people will enjoy this. On my channel, I review many thrillers. If you like thrillers, check out my channel and subscribe. On the screen now is a link to a video for another book I'm sure you'll enjoy.